Hey there, it's Binge Buck with Buck Outdoors. And my dog Jaeger here, who you're probably going to hear panting and moaning and groaning as we go through this video. But Jaeger and I want to show you today a little bit about your detention pond and the idea of dredging that pond. How often should you do it? Why does it have to be done? Does it mean that something's broken? So stay tuned, watch. Again, we appreciate you stopping by. All right, so let's talk about this detention pond and how it collects sediment and needs to be dredged. We're just going to use the board so that we can draw this out for you. And you're going to learn really quickly that I am not an artist. So there's our house, right? Part of the neighborhood, and I'll spare you. I only draw one house instead of a bunch. I'm not an artist, that's my wife. And you can find her art at lauriebuckstudios.com, where you can learn more about Laurie's art. There's a little shameless plug for you on that. But throughout your neighborhood, all these houses, you've got a road that goes through. And Jaeger says that as the rain hits the roof, comes down the gutter spouts, it's going to bring with it the synthetic material that's on these shingles. And then it's going to go through the yard, and it's going to pick up waste left by Jaeger and his friends. And then it's going to go through the driveway and through the road and pick up oil that has been deposited by your vehicles. And then it's going to go down the road, and it's going to find a curb cut of some sort, a grate, and the water is going to go into there. And then it's going to follow the road system to the lowest part of the community underground in what's called the stormwater infrastructure. And then it's going to daylight, those pipes that are under the road are going to daylight at a detention pond. And daylight, these pipes just come out, and water is going to flow into the pond. And these pipes, once they daylight, they're referred to as an inlet, as it is letting water into the pond. These pipes are anywhere from generally 18 to 36 inches. I've seen larger, I've seen smaller, but 18 to 36 inches letting water in. Then there's what's referred to as a discharge riser in this pond. Usually it's going to have a cone-shaped grate on top. Sometimes it'll be a flat, but this pipe is open at the top. These grates let water in. That's for that 100-year storm, that major flood that comes in and makes us all go looking for gopher wood so that we can build our ark. That's why this pipe is open at the top. The bottom, it has a small hole. This little hole we refer to as an orifice, and it's usually about 2.5 inches, 3 inches in diameter. And sometimes you'll see larger holes here that let water through as the water builds up in the pond. So again, water's typically leaving through a 2.5 inch hole, coming in through a 30-inch hole, and a lot of times there's multiples of these, so you got water coming in at a much faster rate than it's got the opportunity to leave. And then in this discharge riser, there's an outfall pipe that goes underneath the dam here, and it drops out into the watershed. Maybe there's a river that flows back there. Maybe there's just a dry bed, a low area. But that's where the water leaves your site through that pipe, and that's called the outfall. So as this water's coming in at a much faster rate than it's leaving the pond, what you see is the water level goes up. As that water level goes up, it's kind of choked down, the flow of the water's choked down, water level goes up, and sediment starts going down. So the sediment, little pieces of sand, the particles, the synthetic particles off of your shingles, Jaeger's gifts that he's left in the yard, the neighbor's grass that he blew out onto the road, the oil from the leaky vehicle that drives by the house every day, and their driveway and along the road, there's oil that's getting washed down. into the stormwater infrastructure. It's going into the pond, and as the water level comes up, all those pollutants go down. And over time, from rain event to rain event, sediment builds, and you get to where once the sediment takes up 25%, you need to start thinking about dredging that pond. It's been engineered, designed to hold a certain capacity of water. It's also been engineered, designed to trap sediment. That sediment takes away that engineered design on water capacity. So it's not that the pond is broken, the pond is working. A lot of times people will ask me, how often does it need to be dredged? Well, what they will tell you is 20 to 30 years is the lifetime of a dredging. So every 30 years or so, if you're not dredging, that means that pond's probably not, it's not picking up very much sediment up here, or the pond's not working at all. So you need to be budgeting in your HOA budget to have this dredging done every 30 years. And so the next question is, well, how much should we be budgeting? Well, your pond is different from everyone else's, and there's a lot of variables that go into this. But if it's a small pond and there's not a lot of issues going on, you could probably get this pond dredged for $10,000 to $12,000 in 2023. But there's very few ponds that are that simple. There are ponds that, if they're large and you've got a lot of material that needs to be moved, it's going to cost you over $50,000. So you can see there's 10,000 to 50,000, actually 75,000 and up. I mean, there's a big difference. There's a lot of variables. Do we have to haul this stuff off site? How hard is it going to get sediment from here to up here? There's a lot of things that we have to look at and take into consideration when we're talking about dredging. But as you can see, especially on larger ponds, it can get very expensive. If you have a neighborhood that has 100 homes in it, and you have to dredge this, and you've had 30 years to plan for it, but you haven't planned for it, and now it's a $50,000 dredging, you know, that's $500 of surprise money that neighbors are going to be pretty ticked off at you for coming to them with. But if you've been saving $10 a year for over 20 years, $10 from each house has gone towards a little fund for repairs on the detention pond. Then when the county comes to you or the city comes to you and they say, hey, look, you either clean this out or you're going to get a fine, and those fines get real expensive. If you have your money saved up, no problem, we're ready to roll, we can do it. Here's what I recommend. You need to be saving money in your budget, whatever you can afford. You may need to start small and grow that number as you go along, but you need to be collecting money for pond maintenance, which is going to primarily be the dredging of this pond. And then you also need to educate your community. Don't be blowing your grass out into the road. Don't be leaving leaves in your yard. Pick up after your dog. You know, those kind of things, if a neighborhood can get a hold of, they can actually save themselves a lot of money in the long run, because this is nothing but stuff from your home that you've not managed well. So it's simple, it's easy to do. Another thing that I tell people, that when I'm driving around and I'm looking at ponds that I maintain, I notice that a lot of people, it'll be raining outside and their irrigation systems will be running, so their yard's getting water twice in one moment. Doesn't need that, and all that does is taxes your stormwater pond. There's some things you can do as a neighborhood to save money on this, but it starts one person at a time. Hey, we're Buck Outdoors. Stormwater Solutions is the name of our game. If there's anything we can do to help you, give us a shout. Hope this little board here is helpful. If it was, give us a thumbs up. Like our video. If you haven't subscribed already, subscribe. Tell a friend about us. We look forward to interacting with you in the future.